Good morning. My name is Alexina Maenda, and today we're going to learn about seams in clothing and construction. So, we are going to learn the reasons as to why we study seams. First, it is to construct projects, ensure durability, achieve professional finish, adapt to fabric types, create design effective, understand patterns, develop problem solving, especially in clothing and construction, to foster creativity, repair and alter items in fashion and design, and also to build confidence. So, we are going to define the term seam. A seam is a line where two or more materials are joined together. Its purpose, it is to hold materials together, create a shape, provide strength, and also they can provide a decorative look. They are found on countless applications in textile, construction, and during manufacturing period. So, we are going to see the types of seam. They include the zigzag seam, the overlock seam, the plain seam, among the others that you are going to encounter on this session. So, the commonly used seams in clothing construction include the plain seam, the flat fell seam, the fringe seam, the welt seam, and the bound seam. So, the plain seam is a basic seam where two pieces of fabric are sewn together, usually with the raw edges pressed open to one side. The flat seam is a strong and durable seam where the raw edges are enclosed by folding and stitching, often seen on items needing strength like jeans. Third, we have the French seam. It is a seam with a very clean interior finish created by sewing two seams, one enclosing the raw edges with the other. Fourth, we have the welt seam. It is a strong seam where the raw edges are turned to one side of the top and top stitched, providing both strength and a neat appearance. Lastly, we have the bound seam. A bound seam is a decorative and it is also used for protection. It is made by enclosed. It is enclosed with a separate piece of fabric like a bias tape or a bias binding. So we are going to see the procedure of making a plain seam. So on the image you can see a plain seam which is made by finishing the seam by using an overlock. So first you're going to place the fabric right side together and pin along the seam. Sew a straight stitch along the pinned line using a desired seam allowance. Third, finish the raw edges to prevent fraying by using the overlock or the zigzag. Lastly, you're going to press the seam flat either by open or putting them to one side. So second, we're going to see the procedure of making a flat felt seam. The flat felt seam is commonly found on the jeans garment. So the procedure is first to stitch your fabric right side together with a wider than usual seam allowance of 5.8 inch. Second, you're going to press the seam open and then you're going to trim the side of the seam allowance in half. Third, you're going to fold the wider seam allowance over the trimmed edge, then fold it under again to encase the raw edges, press flat. Lastly, you're going to stitch close of the folded edge to secure the flat felt seam. Third, you're going to see the procedure of making a French seam. So, first, you're going to stitch the fabric wrong side together with a narrow seam allowance of a quarter an inch. Second, you're going to trim the seam allowance close to the stitching. Third, you're going to press the seam open. Fourth, you're going to turn the fabric right side together and stitch again, encasing the raw edges within the new seam. Use a slightly wider seam allowance than the first stitching. And last, press the finished seam flat to one side. So, the French seam is also a decorative seam. Third, we are going to see the procedure of making a welt seam. So, the first procedure is to stitch your fabric right side together with, with the desired seam allowance. Second, it is to press the seam allowance to one side. Third, trim the underlayer of the seam allowance into half. Fourth, you have to fold the wider seam allowance over the trimmed edge and press flat. And last, stitch through all layers close to the folded edge. So the welt seam is usually made in pockets. So we are also going to see the procedure of making a bound seam. First, prepare and cut a bias binding strip of a fabric with a wider to enclose the raw edges of the fabric. Second, fold the binding strip around the raw edges of the fabric pieces you want to join. Ensure the raw edges of the fabric are fully enclosed within the fold of the binding. Third, pin the binding in place along the entire length of the seam. Fourth, stitch close the inner folded edge of the binding, catching all layers of the binding and the fabric underneath. Lastly, this method creates a neat, durable, and often decorative seam, especially when using a vibrant fabric like kitenge or binding. We are going to look at the importance of making a well-constructed seam. First, uh, it is the strength and durability. A properly sewn or joined seam can withstand stress and wear, ensuring the item holds together over time and through use. This is especially important in Kenya, where items might face a demanding condition. Second is for functionality. The right seam construction ensures the object performs its intended purpose effectively. For instance, seams in clothing need to allow for movement without tearing, while seams in a water tank need the watertight. Third, it is for aesthetics. A well-constructed seam contributes to the overall appearance and finish of an item. Lastly, it is for comfort. In clothing, flat and smooth seam prevent irritation. In conclusion, seams are the lines where two or more materials are joined. They are essential for holding things together, creating shape, providing strength, and can be decorative. We explored various types of seams in textile, from basic stitches to more complex constructions like the flat felt and the French seam. We also saw how the concept of joining materials extends to construction, manufacturing, and even the natural world. Ultimately, well-constructed seams are vital for the strength, durability, functionality, and appearance of countless objects around us. They are fundamental connections that often go unnoticed but play a critical role in our daily lives.